Yeah, hey, how's it going? I'm basically lighting a cigarette off the last one. I haven't even finished putting my stuff away from the last reading because I'm in a hurry. I have an episode of Ahsoka waiting, so that's burning a hole in my brain pocket. And something else is on there too that I can look at that will make me happy. Oh, it's a rerun, but I don't care. I'll just watch it because I like the show. What show? The Connors. Get in there. So, the other thing I wanted to talk about was Marvel's Secret Invasion. And I will list the cast, etc., and I'll show some stuff. But I just want to talk about it for right now. Because, and this is this is very personal, but it really did affect me, and call me crazy or whatever, knock yourself out, I don't care. People have called me stuff, I still live, so knock yourself out. But Marvel, I kind of like lost it with them, and I gotta say it was Endgame that did it, because they killed everybody I cared about all at the same time, or disintegrated them, or disappeared them, whatever, they removed them. And so the way they did it, I thought was terrible. It was wrenching. I'm not the only one. And I understand that people age out and, new eras of things happen. But did they have to kill off everybody all at once like that? Like, that just... I was hurt and I was mad. So I was, like, done. And I was already kind of, I guess, having... I don't want to say superhero fatigue, because I don't think that's what it was. I don't think I'll ever have that fatigue. But I think that the output of Marvel had just become, I don't even know, like, stale and routine, and it just wasn't exciting for me. And like the Spider-Man movies, the first one was great, and then like years later the Miles Morales animated one, also really cool. And then I liked the multiple Spider-Man, okay, but if it wasn't for that, I'm not like really interested in it. I find I much prefer the actual comic books. And then the changing the directors all the time and the writers, and it's just, I just found it tiring. It was like hard to get a grip. And then Shang-Chi came out, and that was, I probably pronounced that wrong, but it was okay. It wasn't bad. I liked it, but it was just okay. And it wasn't because of the content of it. I don't have anti-Asian anything. That's ridiculous. It just, well, I just didn't think it was that great. It was all right. And that may not even be like a Marvel thing. That might, it's got to be partially Marvel, but also me. So I have liked the Star Wars stuff a lot. And that's kind of what I was sticking to until I saw that Secret Invasion was going to show, and that made me really happy and excited. I like Nick Fury, the character Nick Fury, which I know from the comics when I was a kid in the 60s, in the 1960s, when he was a white guy and he had a push broom mustache, and the eye patch. But hey, things change. I'm not like, whatever. Black Fury works too. So he had gotten disintegrated, and then he returned. And the thing I like about Silent Invasion is because it has all these stories of intrigue, and it's very paranoid, and I guess I like that. I like that claustrophobic, on the edge of your seat tension thing. But I also see reflections of reality in those. And I don't know why we do it. It seems like a bad idea to me. And we've been doing it since the 60s. Why do we always have to make Russia the enemy? If it's not Russia, it's something like Eastern European-ish, and it's like a facsimile of Russia. And you know they're talking about Russia. So why are we always, sorry to use a terrible pun, but why are we always poking the bear? They have kind of crappy like spy craft for assassination and murder and whatever, life ending, and so do we. I'm not saying that, I'm not excusing either side for doing that kind of thing, but pardon me. I don't know. I don't know if they do the same thing in Russia, but I think it's really dumb of us. But anyway, the story is post the snap, which they call the blip in the show. And I don't know which Earth he ended up on, Fury. But I know that he's able to go back in, and I think a decade has gone by since the snap. And he's been up on Spear or whatever. Dagger, whatever the space correlation to SHIELD is that's on the ground. It's just more of that organization. But, you know, just like the Justice League in DC, they got a space station. So he retreats there after the snap. And he's got, like, family and work on Earth, but he kind of just retired because it broke him all up when he was disintegrated. And it occurred to me, like, he's got like a wife that is a hidden alien. Oh, sorry, here, I forgot to notify you about the signs. Here, look at some signs, and prepare yourself, because I'm about to spoil oil. And this actually isn't spoiling because it is from the story anyway. It's just continuing. But he's got this wife that's an alien, and she can shapeshift, so not everyone is aware that she is. And not everyone is even aware that there are aliens on the planet, which are the Skrulls. And they are fleeing from another alien race, I think called the Kree. And the subplot about the Skrulls on Earth now, like in this later time period after they've been chased off their own world, have been brought to Earth and promised by like Nick Fury and the president of Earth or America, whatever it is there, and they're like, well, you know, come help us fight these other alien guys, and we'll help you find a new place to live. But then it just doesn't end up happening, and I thought, yeah, we're not great at keeping promises. Like, we've done the indigenous people of this country some serious dirt with all of our treaties and promises and basic BS, because we renege so much. We renege on not indigenous people. Like, we don't really care when it's the government. I don't get into all of that. And I'm actually talking about that real one, the real government in reality. But he's kind of, Fury has let down the Skrulls, and some of them have split off and rebelled from their own people that are siding with Fury and the government. And then there's rebel Skrulls that are siding with the Russians, and then also just getting up to no good all on their own, like fighting their own people that are with the government. So there's a lot of infiltration and, you know, everyone's trying to get it out of everyone else, like some clue. Are you an alien or are you a human? I just need to know, what is your status? And that is paranoid making, you know, because if you don't know who to trust, it makes you paranoid. And what else? The co-workers are like bummed that he left and abandoned a lot of them. There's a Foster Skrull kid that becomes a rebel against his own people leader, and he's vicious and brutal, and he uses, I mean, the tactics that they were using to fight these sort of underground skirmishes between the Skrulls, and they would just get on the government, and collateral damage was happening. But this guy was, his work was reminding me of the Troubles in Ireland, when the Protestants and the Catholics were fighting for years, and it would bleed over into England, and sometimes, you know, there would be bombings or assassinations here in America. And just the way that this Skrull foster kid that grew up, he like took it so personal that Fury didn't do what he said, that he became like a murderer. And I don't know, like maybe he had some kind of psychopathic killer tendencies or something, because he just goes all in. And I'm like, really? Like, you're mad enough that like some person that wasn't even your father or anything, like for real, like you guys are not even the same species, and you're all mad, and so you're just gonna kill everybody and everything. You got a point. He says he has a point. He says a lot of stuff, but really I just feel like I got my feelings hurt and I didn't get my way, and I'm gonna pretend like that's not why I'm really mad, and I'm gonna say that it's this other thing, like you didn't get us a new home. Wham! Just crybaby. I didn't like you. So, you know, Fury's got all these things weighing on him, aside from the job, and aside from the paranoia, intrigue, alien infiltration, who is who confusion. He's got a lot going on. And it occurred to me that, you know, there's like people like on his side, and even like enemies that he met up with later that saw him and were like, oh, you're back, and everybody had to say how tired he was, and he doesn't look like he can do it anymore, and just basically trolling him, because there was not really any reason to think that, you know, just because he was gone. He was traumatized. I don't know why people were not getting that, but the people in this world he's in, they were aware of the blip, but like they didn't get blipped, so to them it's not the same. For him, though, with all of this going on and having that happening to him, for one thing, he says at one point, Fury, that as he was disintegrating, he was saying, he says no, I think, because they show it, but he says that his thought was, his feeling was relief, because he didn't have to answer to all this stuff anymore. He didn't have to be responsible for all these people's feelings and expectations and the job. And it's like it just never ends, you know. And I was wondering, like, when do you relax? How do you relax? Do you sleep? Because like the whole time, like everything he was doing, it was like part of his legend. It was like pretend, a show. And it was like, my God, when does the man get to be himself and just be and process up on the station? So, all that in mind, I thought, holy crap, Nick Fury survived an NDE, a near-death experience. But because he's in the Marvel Universe, I mean, you can frame it like one here, but I don't think I've heard anybody mention a religion on anything Marvel that wasn't some kind of weirdo comic book made-up thing or some analog of some cult out of reality. But not really like much spirituality talk, definitely not much church talk or temple talk or whatever the worship place is, like there's not really much of it as far as in as much as it exists on this side of the screen. So for Fury to have a near-death experience, it's like a different layer of spirituality, a different dimension. And I just thought, like, he comes back to a world that he recognizes, but it didn't seem to me, I have to confess, I possibly wasn't paying 100% attention to all of the dialogue, but I think that he came back to a world that was like his, but not exactly his, which would be disorienting, along with all of your friends dying. And I don't know if he saw it all happening in action, but I know he saw at least one other person than himself. He did witness it, and that had to be debilitating. I mean, it's bad enough when someone that you love and know and care about dies, or dies horribly, or is just ripped away irretrievably, insensibly. The whole thing was just a trauma. And I just watched it. I'm not like in the story. But he was, and so he got the impact of all of that stuff. And so when he came back, when we come back on this side of the screen from a near-death experience, I think there's various reactions, but mostly what I've seen is it's positive. Like, they're mad that they came back. They wanted to stay because where they were when they were dead was so nice and beautiful, but they had still business to complete here, so they couldn't stay. It was not their time. In this, though, in Fury's world, his NDE, something went wrong. Like, he didn't come back 100%. Like, he came back 100% Fury, but yeah, he's 10 years older. No help in that. But that's not stopped a lot of people on this side of the screen or that, fictional side from doing stuff. But he definitely did have an aura of exhaustion, of just, I think they mistook his sort of F with me one more time and I'm gonna go off on everybody for like desperation and what is the word for giving up? Well, whatever it is, the word for giving up. I think that he, on top of everything else that he was feeling, had to keep a lot inside of him, like maintain an outer image of decrepitude, I guess. Is that a word, or decrepitude? Well, anyway, he's old and broken down. He had to maintain that illusion that people were just, there was a lot of attitudes. Like, I think a lot of people were just talking shit, basically, trolling him, because there was no anything except for maybe the aura of fatigue with everything that I could see that made him weak or feeble. And you know how people get, like, you're not there, they talked a bunch of crap about you, they admired you, felt like you were more impressive or better at whatever it was you were doing. Whatever it was that would make a certain person feel less than in comparison. And so then he comes back and everyone's like all full of themselves, and I don't know, maybe they had to tell themselves that he was weak and feeble. And so I'm not gonna like totally spoil the end of it, but I'll just say that he ain't weak and feeble if you didn't get the tone already. So yeah, he dies and he comes back and it's just all disorienting. And who dies when you're falling apart before your own eyes? Your own self is. Think about that. How would you feel? How would that make you feel? That would freak me the freak out. And then he comes back, and you know, the wife is like, "Oh, you came back? Where you been?" She wasn't like that, but kinda. And everyone was like that with him, and I feel like he was like, "I just fell apart and I'm barely put back together, and you people are just throwing me back in the cement mixer." Boy, I mean, just talking about it makes me tired. So, I actually don't want to talk too much about the story because it's a short series, and it was really good, very suspenseful, kind of very sad, bittersweet. There's some losses that you feel, but I really enjoyed it. I mean, I knew the story from years ago when it first appeared in comics, when I worked in a comic book store, so that was like the best time, because a lot of the stuff that's coming up now, for years they just did the same stories over and over about Batman and Superman and Spider-Man. Like, how many Spider-Mans, like the first one, they just switched out the Spider-Man and switched out the Gwen? It's like, yeah, I need more. So, okay, thanks. I remember from the story, in the pulp, it's going to be slightly different than the movie, because obviously you've got thought bubbles that you can't do on film. I mean, you could do them. If there was some brave filmmaker that didn't think it was hokey or something, I think it would be useful to have a thought bubble once in a while. At least it would be exposition done more interestingly for a change. Getting off the sidetrack though, because I really want to talk about Fury and this experience that he had. No one is going to understand what he meant, because to the best of my knowledge, there was no other people that had fallen apart or been ripped apart basically and reassembled there on Earth, that Earth with him. And you find out that through much digging and conversating and investigating and trying to be all sly and not let people know what you're trying to find out, you had to try to discern who the heck was real human and who wasn't. And so when you find out that ones you really care about are alien, well, and they're just walking around acting like you, because these shape-shifting, I'm using alien because that's how they use it in the movie. I do not like that term. I prefer extraterrestrials. In fact, I've smooshed it down to XTs and XDs for X-dimensionals, because just cause fewer syllables. But did I lose my? Where was I? Something about Fury. Oh, yeah, like, you have to be able to tell them apart, and it's not immediate. And if you don't have like some kind of machine or something, you have to talk with them and go back and forth and play the game and slip them up somehow. So that's more nerve-wracking that he had to worry about. It's just like not a joyous, happy return, and even less so than the ones in reality on this side of the screen, where people come back and they've seen God or Jesus, and you know, heaven is so beautiful, and their pets and their grand people and parents and so on. No, he's not coming back saying any of that. In fact, he came back disturbed. So that also could be the vibe that people are feeling, or that they're putting on him, and also not interpreting properly. They are getting that it's something that happened to him since he was gone, and people seem to know that he was affected by the blip. I don't know. I mean, when I thought about this, I wrote so many pages. It just pulled out so much. The idea that he came back from this NDE, basically this Marvel Universe NDE, and it's just all messed up. And he does come through, and like happy endings all around, you know, even though there's a lot of death. But you just feel like, I just felt like, even though everything kind of got sewed up and, you know, tightly put back together, I just felt like he was in a different world, and he would never, he would act like it was fine and he could just fit right back in, but like he just always knew it was either him reassembled that was not him anymore, or he just came back into this world and was just out of phase with it, like, you know, not his frequency was not in harmony with this place and these people that were so like his people and yet not. And then there is a redeeming part where he gets to save some of his people, and that does feel better. Like, man, don't take away so much. What did you take? Pixar lessons, Marvel, like hurting people with all these deaths and things to your favorite heroes and characters? What are you doing to me? But yeah, I'm glad that I feel better about, I can feel better about Marvel again after this, and I can have hope that more of the same will come along. Although, why did they just have the one season of Andor? Is that it? I want more. I want more Mandalorian too. Anyway, that is what I have to say about that. I feel so bad for Nick Fury. Thank you and good night. Oh, not his touchscreen. Still not. I'll learn one of these days.